Us for Barrie Innisfil. Joining me today will be Barrie South Innisfil. Joining us today is John Brassard from the Conservative Party and John Olithius from the Liberal Party. Before we proceed, I'm just going to read our territorial acknowledgement, land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional territory of the Wendat, Anishibak, and Wata First Nation, as well as the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and the Potawatomi, and acknowledge that Simcoe Muskoka is the home of the first of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. May the call to live as neighbor and in community together lead us forward into the work of peace as we listen to one another and seek truth and reconciliation. I also would like to thank the group sponsoring this event, the Simcoe County Health Coalition, CARP, the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, the Barrie chapter, Seniors for Climate Action Now, our host, Grace United Church, and the Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition. What we're going to get, the format will be, we're going to get into introductions in just a moment from the candidates, and then we'll proceed. If you have questions that you want to ask the candidates, my colleagues who have their hand up will be walking around to take your questions. And after 4 initial structured questions, I'll be asking the candidates those questions. You can address the question to a specific candidate, but I'm going to give the opportunity for both candidates to reply to the question. So without much further ado, thank you both for being here, John O. and John B., as I'm going to, in my folksy way, refer to them. I appreciate them allowing me to do that. So we're going to start off with an introduction from John Olithius from the Liberal Party.
Okay. You're on. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it's just John and I up here. So we've known each other for years, so this is a good opportunity for us to kind of share our ideas and our plans for our future with you all. I just got a few comments here. I can say the election comes at a time of crisis. President Trump has disrupted global markets. He's basically created an issue for all of us, probably everybody in the world right now. What we're going to need with Canada, we want to keep Canada strong, a sovereign nation. I think we both agree with that as far as getting things done. We're going to have to protect Canadians. We're going to have to keep our markets growing. It's a situation where this election is of huge importance. We have to get the proper leaders in place to get us through this mess. So it's a trying situation, but I think particularly the Liberal Party will get us through this. Thank you.
Okay. And now our introduction for John Brassard from the Conservative Party.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank CARP and the other organizations for organizing this event this evening. I also want to thank John for stepping forward and putting his name on the ballot. It's a tough decision to do that. Anytime you engage and participate in the democratic process, we should obviously be respected for that, and so I congratulate you for putting your name on the ballot. Just a little bit about myself. I've been the Member of Parliament now for 9.5 years. Before that, I was a city councillor here in Barrie. I've spent 19 years serving my community. And before that, I was a firefighter in the town of Markham, spent 30.5 years. So serving my community has come naturally to me. And I would agree with John that this is a important election. In fact, many people that I've talked to, either at the door, in my office, on the phone, by email, they've all said that this is the most important election in our history. One of the things that you're going to hear tonight, I'm going to focus on restoring the hope and promise of our nation. The situation with Trump, obviously it's to be concerned about, but I will say that many of the problems that we've been facing over the last almost 10 years of this Liberal government has come as a result of failed policies, failed economic policies, policies with respect to social policies, domestic policies. These challenges were happening long before Trump's threats of tariffs. And so that doesn't mean that we don't take those threats seriously. We have to make sure that we insulate ourselves as a nation from them. And we're going to talk about some of those ideas tonight. So I want to thank all of you for being here, and thank again Rogers TV for recording this and making it available for everyone to see.
Thank you, John. So we're going to get into the first part of the question period, where there's going to be 4 general topics. My questions are going to be quite lengthy. I'm going to put, we've got a little more time because we have 2 candidates here. So last session we were a little shorter. I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock for the answer for each one. And then I've got a little bell here that you're going to hear ring if you happen to hit the 5-minute mark, just to give you a warning. So again, and the way we're going to start off with, John Brassard for the first question on housing. Then I'm going to go to John O for the next one, John Olithius. And then we're going to flip the order on each question as we proceed through the 4. So here's my question on housing. Canada faces an unaffordable housing crisis. Housing starts in Canada are down due to multiple challenges, with the government regulations, exclusionary zoning, tax barriers, developmental costs, lack of committed funding and skilled labor, increased material costs, tariffs, fear and uncertainty. How would your government increase the percentage of affordable, non-profit rental housing units and invest in related necessary infrastructure, directly support increased housing starts, eliminate barriers to building more housing and support builders, support innovative solutions for seniors aging at home, including home modifications, financial options for home support services, and shared and co-living opportunities, align funding and policy from the federal government to the provinces, and then to municipalities, and tie the funding back to successful outcomes. So, John B., question to you.
Okay. Thank you for this very important question. The issue of housing affordability and housing attainability. We have seen over the last 10 years, as a result of government policy, housing increase. The cost of home sales has more than doubled. We've seen rental increases that have doubled, that have basically priced many people out of the housing market and has caused this housing attainability and affordability crisis. There's not a day that goes by in my office where we're not walking somebody in off the ledge who is having problems paying their rent or paying their mortgage. And in particular, young people are really suffering right now. I have 4 kids. None of them are in the housing market. Many of them have done the right things. They've gone to university, they've got an education, they've worked hard. In some cases, some of them work 2 jobs, and yet they still can't afford the cost of home ownership. And for many of them, it's the down payment that's causing the problem, because at a 20% requirement for down payments on an $800,000 or $900,000 home, well, do the math and see how difficult it is for many of those young people to find the down payment. Now, you know, obviously, you know, I consider myself, I've worked hard my whole life. My wife and I have invested wisely. But we can't, with 4 kids, supply them with a down payment. We just don't have the financial means. And so what that means for all of us, we have to refocus our priority on housing and making sure that housing affordability and attainability is there for young Canadians. I talked to many, many young Canadians, as I said, and not only do they feel lied to and let down that they were going to have the prospect of a brighter future, many of them are despondent right now and in a state of despair because they don't believe that housing is going to be there for them, particularly in our area where we've seen an increase in housing. So, you know, what are some of the things that we can do and some of the things that policy proposals that we've proposed? Well, we've talked about building 2.3 million homes over the next 5 years with a credible and realistic plan by helping Canadians save an average cost of about $100,000 on the purchase of a new home. One of the things that we've announced is axing the GST on all new homes under $1.3 million, saving up to $65,000 on the cost of a new home and $3,000 per year in mortgage payments. There's also a responsibility that the federal government has of working with municipalities, and that is to incentivize cities to reduce development charges. With every dollar of relief of a municipality offered in development charges, that they get reimbursed 50% up to a maximum of $50,000 home. Now, if you talk to any developer, and I've talked to many, and you talk to city officials, they'll tell you that the cost of development charges, building fees, and permits make up a good portion of the housing market right now. So if we can work with municipalities to incentivize that, scrap the underused housing tax that costs more to administer than is collected in taxes, and we're talking about efficiency here. Eliminate the new tax on home renovations to support homeowners. Remove the requirement to report the sale of your home to the CRA. This is something that came in a couple of years ago, where it was never happening before, where homeowners are required now through the CRA to register their home, and that can only mean the possibility of a precursor of a home equity tax. There's been numerous studies that have been done by this government on home equity taxes, and that's the last thing that we should be doing in order to ensure security income for retirees. The other thing that we're going to focus on is tying infrastructure funding to results, not promises, by rewarding cities that permit over 15% more home building annually and reducing funding for those that fall short, holding back federal dollars from cities that raise building fees or block needed development, requiring cities to publish approval timelines and development charges, fast-track home building through shovel-ready zones, establish a 60-day standard that CMHC executives must meet for approving or rejecting affordable housing financing applications. There's other things that we can do. Identify 15% of federal buildings and lands to sell for housing in livable new neighborhoods within 100 days. We have to be bold, we have to be ambitious, and we have to be audacious in everything that we do. And you're going to hear me say that a lot tonight, because housing for people in this country is a threat right now. And if we can't provide proper housing for people, young people, we're going to end up in a situation where we find more and more people on the street. We can't have that happen in a G7 country like Canada. Housing is an important issue, and we're going to tackle it in the proper way.
Thank you, John B. John O., same question, housing.
Okay. I'm a father of 5 children. So, well, basically 4 children. I consider my son, my wife's son, also my son. And 4 out of those 5 got into the housing market. Now, there's different ways of getting. I did not help them. I was just basically a utility worker in customer service, and so I'm not in a position to finance them getting into their homes. There's different grants that were available to help them in Simcoe County, first-time home buyers grants and so on that they applied for. We had to wait years, but they were able to get in and get a down payment on a home. Ultimately, they'll have to pay that back. Sorry, there we go. Gotta work the mic, John. But but anyway, so yeah, they managed to get into the market, which I'm very proud of. My daughter, my youngest, she's in Vancouver, so she doesn't have a hope in getting into a house in Vancouver. But here in Barrie, our government's doing what we can. It's the housing issue, the economy, and so on. I know the Conservatives like to blame the last 9 years on the Liberals, but we did not cause everything globally. We had nothing to do with the rest of the globe having the same issues that we're having here in Canada. But we do have some ideas as far as moving forward to try and solve that. You may have heard that we've developed a catalog of homes. Some of you in this room are aware of what happened after the Second World War. They built war homes. And they're cute little homes, but they're prefab type of designs. What they've built today is a catalog of different types of homes. They're modern looking, contemporary, they're all energy efficient. They're plug and play type of applications. We're going to be working with developers and also with federal lands, potentially opening that up to build these homes on. We're going to have to work with municipalities We're working to get reduced fees as far as getting connections and so on, working with utilities to try and see what we can do to get these homes built in a cost-effective manner. The other thing is we're looking at is for youth, for job creation. The opportunity here is for apprenticeships. We're going to be working with manufacturers and to develop these homes, but a lot of them will be built as prefab. So there's an opportunity like factory work. So there's so actually making things in Canada again, an opportunity there, and getting apprentices working and starting their career, like hands-on. You can feel my hands they're calloused. Even though I was an office worker, I still put my hands to the grindstone. But here get some more notes here. As far as affordable homes, by providing over $25 billion in financing for innovative prefabricated homes, as I was talking about. So there's $25 billion that we're looking to put towards that. And innovation, some of it is like mass timber. I don't know if you've seen it. I had to look it up. But it's like using wood products, Canadian wood products, in a different manner. They're actually building structures using wood beams and so on. Very innovative and also energy efficient and green. And in working with our softwood industry to develop these types of techniques. We've looking at, you mentioned the GST, so we're going to eliminate the GST on the sale of new homes, cut municipal development charges in half, reintroduce a tax incentive for home builders known as a multi-unit rental building, and speed up approvals along with all parts of the process. Cutting development costs is in half is expected to spur an estimated $8 billion of private investment every year. We have to get incentivized developers and builders to create some homes that are affordable. John knows too. You can drive in our neighborhood, go south, and some of the homes you see there, some things are quite innovative. They actually have like 2-family homes that are being built. That's might be where things are going to go, where the main family lives upstairs and they have an apartment off to the side, all in one unit. They're actually constructed that way, so that's somewhat innovative, but there's still over $1 million to buy one of these. So we have to move forward and try and come up with innovative, cost-effective means to try and get some housing in the area. Developers, some of them are sitting on land. They've been sitting on waiting to develop. They've kind of, with the market right now, it's just basically stopped. I have real estate friends. I've talked to people, and we need to come up with new ideas, bring them forward.
Thank you, Jono. So we're going to flip the order. So we're going to go right back to you, Jono. The second question is polarization, national unity, and disinformation. There are currently great divisions throughout our country, specifically between East and West provinces. How will your party, if elected, unify the country which doesn't separate us into regions based on our opinions and supports? How will you communicate your vision to the masses in a constructive way that will prevent mis- and disinformation from being distributed via social and mainstream media? Will you bring back mainstream media ownership to Canada?
Okay. To unite the country, Mark Carney led government is going to build an economy where Canadians can work in any province, basically. They can work where they want to, where goods can move freely from coast to coast. I'm not sure if you're all aware, but there are certain items that you cannot move between provinces. If you're ever 18 years old and trying to get beer out of Quebec and try and get it into Ontario, it's illegal. And that's just one example. So there's a number of things that are standing in the way between interprovincial transport. Even transport is an issue. So the Carney government is actually trying to move forward in actually freeing up those things, working with the provinces, the premiers, to try and introduce movement, getting rid of these kind of concessions that are in place and make it a free market, similar to what we want from other nations. The Canadian economy, we want one Canadian economy, not 13. We're going to reduce internal costs by up to 15% to expand the economy by up to $200 billion, we figure, just by freeing up the interprovincial movement of goods without costs. There's a nation-building projects that connect Canada and grow the economy, such as a high-speed rail train from Windsor to Quebec City. We're in favor of a transcontinental grid, which I've been, as a hydro guy, been wanting forever. Technically, it hasn't made sense in the past, but now they're actually looking forward to moving that. And I think a number of parties are actually looking at that, finally thinking it's a good idea. So we can move electricity from one end of the country to the other. We all know about time of use rates, and the situation is we have so many time zones in Canada. Certain provinces are actually in off-peak, as we're approaching mid-peak or on-peak, so we can actually share our electricity across, and electricity is the cleanest form. We're looking at pipelines, and I know the Conservatives are always looking at pipelines and moving oil and so on, but I think if you look at Newfoundland, they have oil, and natural gas. They don't need Alberta oil to be moved across. This is kind of my personal opinion, but if you can't find a company that's willing to build a pipeline, there's no business case. So we're talking about an economist here. He's going to be looking at, it's got to be a viable project in order to, if the federal government's going to finance it. So that's not going to happen. Perhaps, if somebody comes up with a good solution. As far as the CBC, holy smokes, I'm a fan. You hear people calling it, I don't know, fake news or biased news or whatever it is, but I'm a fan of the CBC. CBC, up north, you're listening to CBC radio, especially if you have any French. It's mandatory in Canada. And I can read you a few of the shows that I watch. Have you ever heard of Schitt's Creek? CBC, okay. Now there's, as far as this hour has 22 minutes, they're a political comedy type of show, and they make fun, and their number one person they made fun of was Trudeau. But he was a good, good sport. He would take some of these things in stride, and they make fun. And they make fun of Pierre too. But North to North, North of North. It's a brand new show, and it's actually in Nunavut. So it's actually a pretty cool show. Not too many people have probably watched it, but it's like lifestyle in the North. It's absolutely amazing. You can learn a lot about our country just by watching that show. Son of Critch, that's Mark Critch, who's also on 22 Minutes. It's about Newfoundland and him growing up when he was a kid in Newfoundland, so you get a good experience there. CBC Radio, I listen to the news on CBC, and I do listen to other stations, and even, our local Rogers, they broadcast and so on. But yeah, it's mainly the international news I get from CBC. It's something that we need in this country. If we put funding together, there are private news channels, but most of them are funded either by U.S. or other things. Canadian, and by slashing the CBC, I think it's just wrong. It's part of our nature. And where would you get shows when they're talking about none of it, And, pardon me? Coronation Street. Well, yeah. So they're willing to bring that, Coronation Street from Britain and other shows. It's our heritage, So I think it's something that we need as people to retain and hold fast and finance.
Thank you, John O. John B., same question, polarization, national unity, and disinformation.
Okay, so I kind of feel like Bill Withers and Grover Washington Jr. up here, just the two of us, right? Remember that old song? The interesting question, because I am the most recent chair of the Ethics Committee of Parliament, and we have done a substantive investigation on disinformation and misinformation. And judging by the room, and not to judge the age of those who are here, I think all of us remember when disinformation and misinformation used to be called lying, right? Somehow the term has morphed into something more than what it is, and it's lying. I can tell you that I, for one, am tired of the apparatus of government being used to divide people in this country along regional lines, race lines, faith lines, gender lines. We've seen a concerted effort on that part, and I'm tired of it, because we face some great challenges in this country, and the magnitude of the challenges that we're facing right now require all of us to be working together, not to be divided along those lines. And if we don't start working together, we are not going to meet those challenges, like housing affordability, like crime that has pervaded our streets, like the threats of tariffs that Trump is dealing with right now, that we are dealing with Trump. So one of the greatest threats to our country right now is not just an economic malaise, but it's also the threat of foreign interference. And we're seeing right now concerted efforts on the part of foreign governments like China, like Russia, and like India to interfere in our democratic systems and our democratic values. Now, with respect to China, we've seen it in this campaign, actually, where the Chinese communist regime has been using social media tools to discredit candidates that are running in a democratic country. They did this in 2021, and they did it to some degree in 2019. And we have to stop this as a nation. We can't have governments that are complicit, corrupted, or infiltrated by the foreign interference that is pervading our country right now. And there are ways to do it. If we want to fight disinformation and misinformation, there are ways to do it. Number one is to set up a public agent registry of foreign agents who are acting in this country so that we are aware who is acting on behalf of foreign countries and foreign governments. They did that in Australia. And the best way to expose foreign information or interference, and the best way to deal with misinformation and disinformation, otherwise known as lying, is to expose it, just like they did in Australia. Now, for me, I've been a little concerned. In fact, I've been a lot concerned about seeing a recent candidate suggest that that a Conservative Party candidate in Don Valley be turned over to the Chinese Communist regime. I mean, that should concern all of us, that anyone who is running for public office is suggesting that a Canadian citizen of Hong Kong origin should be turned over to the Chinese Communist regime for a bounty. I mean, if that doesn't concern you, and if that doesn't indicate to any of you, or any of you watching, just how pervasive Chinese foreign interference, Chinese government foreign interference is in this country, it should worry you like nothing worries you. And it's not just them, it's Russia as well. And we've seen Russian disinformation happen as well. We did a study at Ethics Committee, and I asked an adjunct professor from Rutgers University. His whole job is to study misinformation, disinformation, lying, whatever you want to call it. I said to him, how do we know? How do we know that we're not dealing with all of these things that are going on, either propagated by China, Russia, India, or other things? He says, you don't. He said, I asked him, I said, give us your best advice. And he said, assume that everything you see online is fake until it's otherwise proven to be true. Because the intent is to destabilize our democracy. The intent is to destabilize our institutions, to destabilize our political process, like we've seen the Chinese Communist regime do through their WeChat application to discredit, in particular, Conservative candidates and our leader, Pierre Poilievre. So that is the biggest threat to what we're dealing with right now, and we need to get a handle on it. Thank you.
Thank you, John B. So we're going to go into the healthcare question. We'll start with John B. and then move on to John O. With healthcare, can you commit to upholding not only the letter, but the spirit of the Canada Health Act to ensure healthcare remains public and accessible for all Canadians, including Indigenous people, women, LGBTQ2S+ individuals, and rural and remote communities, stopping and reversing the privatization efforts by several provinces. How will you hold provinces accountable for federal transfer funds meant for healthcare to be used for healthcare only? Will you commit to uphold full body autonomy and access to reproductive care, including abortion as an essential integrated part of our public health system?
Yeah, and it's a important question for everyone. We've seen a healthcare system that has really declined over the course of the last several years. There are many, many factors why that has occurred, and it's not because we don't spend enough, because we do spend enough on healthcare. The transfers to the provinces are upwards of close to $60 billion. And in fact, what should be concerning to anyone with respect to our healthcare system and the sustainability of our healthcare system is the amount of debt that our country is incurring, because right now we're spending more on interest to service the debt than we are on healthcare transfers to the provinces. So think about that for a second in terms of the threat to our healthcare system, the increased debt and deficit. We have to make sure that we're not allowing our doctors to burn out, that and Canadians suffer while we make excuses about healthcare. So what are some of the things that we're going to do in order to fix the system? Well, first and foremost, we're going to remove barriers by recognizing credentials, respecting workers, and empowering families. We'll protect our healthcare system and the Canada Health Act, to the point of your question, with its central promise that every Canadian should have timely access to healthcare without charge. And we are going to honor that through the federal health transfer agreements to fund the health care all Canadians deserve, preserve existing dental care and other programs as well, and honor the existing deals that we have with the provinces and territories on child care and pharmacare. Now again, to my point earlier, there's been a lot of disinformation and misinformation throughout this campaign about what the Conservative position will be. We have stated clearly and we have stated unequivocally that those programs will remain, including senior programs and maintaining the age of retirement at 65. If anybody tells you any different, they are spreading misinformation or disinformation as far as our policies are concerned. The other thing that we can do too, and this is really important in terms of taking away some of the pressures on our healthcare system, and that is to establish a Blue Seal national credentialing plan. Here's how it's going to work. Qualified Canadians and newcomers, they're too often blocked from working because of red tape. We'll remove those barriers so skilled people can help fix our broken system. We will launch a Blue Seal program to help Canadians and newcomers get to work faster by working with the provinces to create nationally recognized licenses for doctors, nurses, early childhood educators, and other professionals. There are 40,000 foreign-trained physicians in this country who are not acting in the profession in which they were trained. Many of them are underemployed. Many of them are underemployed, and I give an example of one of my neighbors, one of our neighbors, who is a trained medical doctor. She's been a physician for 28 years. Recently, she's been driving a school bus. That shouldn't be that way. Now, there are language barriers, but we can develop a system of mentorship and training for a medical doctor that's foreign trained. Their credentials should not be any less than what a medically trained person in this country it should be, because they're not. 28 years as a family physician. How many of you don't have a family physician right now? I'm glad we all do. But there are many in this country, tens of thousands of people who don't. And so we should be making sure that those foreign-trained physicians and other professionals are integrated into our healthcare system to reduce the burden. We'll provide small loans to help new Canadians complete the Blue Seal certification, bringing home Canadian students studying medicine abroad by expanding residency spots for them here. where they want to work in our healthcare system. Rapidly recognizing U.S. board-certified professionals to bring more qualified physicians to meet Canadians' healthcare needs, and our plan is to add 15,000 more doctors, a realistic plan by 2030, and will protect healthcare access by uploading the Canada Health Act and defending universal public healthcare, maintaining the party's 21-year-old policy that a Conservative government will not support any legislation to regulate abortion. There will be no laws, no rules, no regulations passed restricting abortion in this country. That issue has been dealt with. And it's a divisive issue that political parties use as a weapon. They weaponize it during election campaigns. Our position is clear. Pierre Poilievre's position is clear that we will not reopen that divisive debate.
Same question, general healthcare.
Okay, thank you. Those are great ideas, John. The blue seal idea, I like that. You know, I think this is something, what's a little bit different is I think there's an opportunity for parties to work together in Parliament. I think that the problem has been we introduce something, or the NDP comes together with us and we introduce something, and the other party tends to vote it down. And I'm happy to hear that you're going to be keeping all those things that have been introduced. And I would support you in is bringing in these other doctors and getting them certified. I think that's a very important thing to do. If they're capable, let's get them to work. They shouldn't be driving buses. The Liberal government also is looking to bring in, I think just recently, it may have been even today, where actually put a call out to the United States to bring back our Canadian doctors and nurses that went over. So I don't know if there's going to be incentives for them to do it, other than not having to be under Trump. That's an incentive in itself. But we wanted to bring these people back and get them working in our hospitals. A lot of the issues, and I think John may have touched on it, is that the federal government is giving funding to the hospitals and so on. And right now, the provinces are responsible for doing things with that money. And maybe there should be some stricter rules, I guess, as far as what can be done. If they're not implementing, if they're not using that money soundly, then we draw it back a little bit. So there's some things that can be done there. We want to build hospitals, clinics, and by investing, we're looking at $4 billion construct and renovate community healthcare infrastructure, including long-term care homes, community clinics, increase access to team-based care and mental health care services. I don't know if I want to get into the homeless situation, but a lot of that has to do with mental care. Some of you remember, even I'm going off script, but if you remember Aurelia, there's used to be a facility there, and it was closed. And where did those people go? Exactly, they went to the streets. So the Liberal government, we were sympathetic to that, and we have to do something to bring people into getting proper care. One of the other things we're looking at is the dental care program. We're hoping that we get the support of the Conservative government to bring this forward as well. So basically anybody 65 years of age and older, children under 18, adults with disability tax credit, it should be coming into effect May of 25. So, and that's families with incomes less than $90,000. So that's something that's coming very soon. We're quite excited about that. Also, as far as abortion clinics, I'm happy to hear that, John. As far as the Conservatives are concerned, there was some rumors or whatever that they were more pro-life than anything else. And as far as the Liberals are concerned, it's your body, it's your life. So it's up to you. So thank you. One other thing that we're doing, we know there's a lot of young families that are trying to have families, young people. So we're actually introducing a new in vitro fertilization program to make more affordable for Canadians who want to become parents. I've worked with a number of people who that is a crucial, it's extremely expensive to do this. And I think we've heard tale of people, young people are living at home longer, and there's some question about young women and having children, and maybe they're not moving into homes and they're not having babies young enough. So this in vitro fertilization also gives people the opportunity that they can have babies later in life and so on too. So different opportunities. But again, I'm happy to hear, John, that I think we might be on the same page on some of this. And I think governments working together, parties working together, we can get things moving forward. And I think that's the nice thing about Mark Carney is he's willing to listen to other parties and work together. None of this table banging and shouting in the House. Let's get down to work is what I'm looking to do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jono. We're going to move on to our fourth question. We start with Jono and then move on to John B. right after. The fourth question is climate and environment. Given increasing global instability, international trade challenges, disruptions and natural disasters related to climate change, how will your government prioritize and protect domestic food, agriculture, and water security in Canada? At the local level, how will you protect and implement those protections in vulnerable regions like Lake Simcoe, Georgian Bay, and the Greenbelt? The human and financial toll of climate disasters have been enormous and will continue to be unless we get climate change under control. With some detail, please describe your party's commitment to working towards their net zero goals, including the transition away from fossil fuels, as a major contributing factor. Jono?
Yeah, I think we all know the Liberal government is really concerned as far as the environment is concerned. We took a lot of heat about some supposed taxes that were on the fuel, but that is gone now. But as far as dealing with the environment, it is a crucial thing. And we look at if there's going to be oil production, oil transportation, and so on. We're looking at that in that it has to be a crucial thing. You have to prove to us that it is a mandatory thing, how we're going to control how the effects on the environment. So this is a very sensitive area for both Indigenous people and for everybody, every province. Now, I think the question is more pointing towards this local area. Like I personally was co-chair of the Barrie Earth Hour Music Festival. I don't know if you remember that. We used to have a festival downtown Barrie, and that's where I met my wife, actually. We used to put this on, and it's just for awareness. We need more awareness in this area. You're looking at Lake Simcoe, the phosphorus content we have to work with farmers, try and get that resolved. I think Andrea, on a provincial basis, we've been trying to work with Andrea to try and get her, like there's different levels of government, so everybody could understand. There's federal government. Federal government deals with pretty much every aspect of the country. This question is more related, almost, when I started reading it, is more a provincial issue, but the federal government will take a role in trying to control what's going on, especially in Lake Simcoe. It's a massive lake, and it affects millions of people. So it is very important. We want to protect our food security, and that's also dealing with proper agriculture, dealing with farmers, controlling what they're putting into the soil and how that soil, those phosphorus and other things are migrating to the water. We have to control this, but work with the farmers while maintaining good growing fields. I go back to my notes. I tend to go off script a fair bit, but that's why I'm a Liberal. The Canadians, nature's creating, so I'm allowed to. I'm a Liberal. I'll just go off script. But anyway, this is interesting. We're going to protect more of Canada's nature by creating at least 10 new national parks and marine protected areas, supporting the creation of 15 new urban parks and green spaces in municipalities, halting and reversing nature and biodiversity loss through reinforced efforts to conserve 30% of lands and waters by 2030, and implementing a global biodiversity framework. That sounds like gobbledygook, doesn't it? But it's going to be working together. I like the idea about getting more national parks. I spend a lot of time in parks, Algonquin Park and other places in the north. And I trust a lot of you have spent some time there as well. And it's something we have to maintain in our country, is our national parks, and expand that, our parks. So, bottom line is we have to work with our food producers, which are our farmers, and we also have to look with the environment. Lake Simcoe, very important source of water. We drink, our house is getting surface water treatment plant water. So to keep that lake clean, keeps our faucets clean and our tubs clean. But yeah, we're neighbors, it turns out. So, but yeah, the lake is very important, not only for the people that live in the area, but also for the farmers and everything else. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Jono. John B., same question, climate, environment.
Okay, I appreciate that. And with respect, John, Liberals going off script has got us into the mess that we're in right now. With respect, I say that. But look, we are facing, there's no doubt that we're facing a crisis with respect to climate change. But I will say this, and it's not going to be a popular opinion, Canada is not the problem. We have despot nations, energy-producing nations that are still using coal, that need to be using clean Canadian energy. And on the issue of the carbon tax is not gone. The carbon tax is paused. And it was paused because of this election, because Carney knew how unpopular the carbon tax was, and he wasn't going to go into an election campaign with the carbon tax still in place. If it was truly gone, they would have called back Parliament, repealed the legislation, and it would have been gone. Now, there are two other carbon taxes that are going to happen, that are happening. The industrial carbon tax is still in place. There's going to be an import tax from foreign imports that is also going to be put on for anything that is imported into this country. Now, what is the effect of this? The effect of this is on affordability. It has a cascading effect, as the carbon tax did, through the supply chain. The industrial carbon tax is going to be charged to large emitters. Who do you think is going to pay for that? You, and you are going to pay for that, because any steel that's produced, any other deep manufacturing, that cost is going to be passed on to the consumer. The other thing is, when we import and we place a tax on foreign imports, who do you think is going to pay for that? You, and you are going to pay for that through the supply chain. So ultimately, when these carbon taxes are implemented, it's the end consumer that ends up paying the price. And an already existing affordability crisis in this country, seniors, families, single moms, and others who cannot afford to pay their bills and for the necessities of life, cannot afford to heat their homes, they're the ones that are going to be paying the price. The Conservatives introduced 26 motions to repeal the carbon tax on the basis of affordability, and in each and every circumstance, it was voted against by the Liberal NDP coalition. So we are going to scrap the carbon tax once and for all and make life affordable again for Canadians. Now, I want to address a couple of other things with respect to energy. Whether you like it or not, there is an insatiable appetite that exists around the world for energy, either oil-based resources, LNG, or nuclear resources. Much of it is extracted by countries that don't have the same environmental standards, the same labor standards, the same human rights standards, and the same innovation standards that Canada has. And if we're not supplying the world with clean Canadian energy, with all of those standards in place, who is? Russia, to fuel their war machine? Venezuela? Saudi Arabia? Iran so they can use those funds to support their proxies in Hamas and Hezbollah to attack Israel. We have the best environmental standards in the world. We have the 3rd and 5th largest reserves in the world. We should be supplying the world with clean Canadian energy. And I'll tell you another thing. We have lost over $200 billion in the last 10 years of revenue as a result of our energy sector being attacked by an ideological activist government who believes that natural resources are bad, either through Bill C-69 or C-48, the No More Pipelines Bill, or C-48, the anti-tanker ban. If we had $200 billion in our hip pocket right now, what do you think we'd be telling Trump? I can't say it. Do you want to say it?
I think when Mike's dead.
Okay. What do you think we'd be telling Trump? Or better yet, how would our healthcare system be? How would our education be improved? And how would looking after those who are vulnerable in our society, like Mr. Tom over there does with seniors, how would their lives improved if we had tens of hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue by supplying our clean Canadian energy around the world? So this ideological, virtuous feeling that we should just keep everything in the ground, and that is, quite frankly, Mr. Carney has said he's not going to repeal any of these legislations. It effectively keeps our energy in the ground. And all of the revenue that is potentially created as a result of that is lost to our nation.
We're going to go into.
Okay.
So we're going to get to. We're reaching the part where I'm sure many of you have been waiting for. I've got your questions from the audience. We've got 14 of them. 14. I'm going to ask. We're going to take. I'm going to try to alternate who we go to. But when I read the question, we're going to go to who it's addressed to. But I'm also going to ask the other person to respond to the same question as well. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes for each question. We'll see. We hopefully will get through all of them. I think we're on a good pace. So much appreciation to the audience for coming up with these. And the first question is to John B. It actually says to Conservatives in general, but well, since you're here, we'll ask that question. If your party is elected, will you protect CPP and OAC?
OAC? OAS.
OAS.
Right. We've stated clearly and unequivocally, again, misinformation, disinformation, lying campaign that somehow Conservatives are going to not protect CPP, OAS, and GIS. We are actually going to protect all of those measures. In fact, we are going to improve on senior benefits. There are many seniors right now who want to work, many seniors who want to work and relay their experience, maybe some of John's experiences in the electrical industry to mentor young people. We're going to increase the amount that people can pay and earn tax-free by $10,000 to $34,000 so that they don't have their CPP and their OAS or their GIS clawed back. So we're also going to be reducing taxes on low-income earners as well. That's going to help seniors put an extra $1,000 in their pocket every year to help with the affordability crisis by reducing that tax rate from 15 to 12.75%, which represents a 15% decrease in their taxes. So there are many, many incentives in our program as it relates to seniors. We've stated clearly, unequivocally, that we are going to protect the retirement age at 65. We are going to protect CPP, OAS, and GIS. Full stop. End of story. That's it.
John B., same question. John O, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're going to go one step further. We're actually, you may have heard that the Registered Retirement Income Fund, we've actually reduced the minimum amount because a lot of people right now, seniors, are concerned because they have to convert some of their investments. So we're actually, the Registered Retirement Fund by 25% for 1 year. It's only going to be 1 year, but it's to get us through this mess with Trump. That allows the Canadian seniors more flexibility in choosing when they can withdraw their retirement savings. So it gives you a little bit more room to play with. You don't have to take it all out. You can at least still leave in some of your investment to grow. Also increase the guaranteed income supplement by 5% for 1 year, providing up with $652 for low-income seniors tax-free. I think that percentage, when you said 15%, actually works out to about 2.5%.
Oh, I said that. It actually is 15 to 12.75%, which is a 15% decrease. So it's 15, 12.75, 15%.
Yeah, so
That's what it works out to.
2.5%. But, yeah. So, and we're not going to do anything about removing it, so it's there to stay. So I think there was some question. And like to John's point, it says as far as misinformation, and even Elections Canada has made the comment, don't rely on social media for your answers. I don't want to use a Trump term, but fake news. There's so much that is out there. They're misleading about some of the things that the Conservatives are saying and what we're saying, some of these social media posts are, they're old or they're taken out of context. So
Aren't those memes
be
great?
careful.
Aren't those memes great?
Yeah, but you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Just especially with AI now, some of the things you can see out there, it's just like, how is this possible? But anyway. Yeah, as far as seniors are concerned, we're there for you.
Thank you, Jono. And the next question I have from the audience is to Jono. It's going to be about carbon tax. So this question is addressed directly to the Liberals, but again, in response in terms of the carbon tax when John Beese will be answering the same question. So Jono, the question is, for the last 3 years, the Liberals have sold the carbon tax, have said the carbon tax would put more money in pockets of 85% of people. Now they say cutting it would save money, which is true.
I don't think we're saying, we're not saying that it's going to save money. It was putting more money in people's, 85% of the population was getting more money. I know I was. I think most of you people probably got more money back. And I see with the gas pumps, it hasn't really gone down that much. There was one time I saw it for $1.10. That lasted about 6 hours. But now it's back up to $1.32. I've seen it as $1.45. So it's kind of back where it was, and I don't know where that money's going to either, that impact one isn't as big as we thought it was, or somebody's taking advantage of the situation. The other thing is, yes, John, you're right, the carbon tax is still there on large industrial polluters. We don't call it carbon tax, but it's a penalty basically for polluting. And the idea is to take those funds and actually reinvest them in trying to reduce emissions. So I don't think the Conservatives have a plan as far as dealing with the emissions. So we're trying to keep something in place at least. You're probably familiar with what the province had originally was cap and trade. There was a situation, actually it was Quebec, Ontario, and California were working. We had a program that was actually working to try, it wasn't exactly a carbon tax on every consumer. So, and John, you're right, just the fact that each consumer was individually paying was not seen as being effective. It wasn't just a ploy for the election. It was because it's working, but it's not exactly working the way it should be. People disagreed with it. People were protesting. So you want to keep calm in the streets. And if it's something that people don't like, we'll deal with it. We'll change it. People have, if they ask questions, they have different suggestions, they have different ideas. But we need to do something about our carbon footprint. And yeah, moving our gas to China, they're going to burn coal regardless, and they have natural gas reserves more than we do, I think. But, and I don't think that's an answer either, so.
Thank you, Jono. John B., in terms of carbon tax?
You just want to repeat the question for me?
Sure. Well, so again, these questions are unfiltered from the audience, so just want to clarify that too when you hear me ask them.
Sure.
So this question was specifically to Jono, and the question from the audience was, for the last 3 years, the Liberals have said the carbon tax put more money in the pockets of 85% of people. Now they say cutting it would save money, which is true.
Neither. John talked about, if it doesn't work, we can change it. Let me give you an example of what didn't work. In the 2019 election, the Liberals ran on a pledge to have carbon pricing at $50 a ton, and that it was never going to go up past $50 a ton. And then shortly after the 2019 election, they announced that it was going to go up to $180 a ton. And just before it was eliminated, it was at 80. So it was going to go up over double the price. Now, we saw on April 1st, when the carbon tax was halted or paused, we saw gas go down 20 cents a liter, which was the price of the carbon tax on the price of gas. It's fluctuated since then. So, think about this. If you're a business owner, or if you have to travel down to Toronto to work, or even Vaughan like John did, calculate every liter of gas that you've put in your car over the last year, and add 20 cents to that, and then add the carbon tax to the cost of heating your home. Add the carbon tax of what it cost you throughout the entire supply chain when you went to the grocery store, and you tax the farmer who made the food, tax the trucker who moved the food, tax the wholesaler who moved the food to a grocery store who was paying carbon tax. There is no way, and even the parliamentary budget officer said this, that you were getting more money back than what you were paying. There is no way PBO certified. I talked to a restaurant owner who showed me one of his bills, $1,345, fast food restaurant owner, $1,345 in carbon tax 1 month. Now you think if he's working off of margins of 10%, he'd have to sell an additional $13,000 worth of food just to pay for his carbon tax. Like, it's ridiculous. So the carbon tax is not scrapped, it's paused, and you can bet that after the election, if the Liberals form government, it's coming back, and it's coming back with a vengeance.
Our next question is to John Brassard.
Yeah.
But we'll get John Olithius to answer it as well. Again, these are unfiltered questions. In terms of stating percentages or anything else of that nature, this is coming straight from the audience. I just want to clarify that.
Sure, yeah, understood.
For John B., violent gun crime is up 55% since 2013. The current confiscation program targets legal gun owners who police say are not the problem. The current program is clearly not working. What will you do to end this failure and focus on stopping illegal guns and actual criminals?
Well, it is a great question. We've seen crime pervading our streets over the course of the last 10 years. As you said, violent crime is up, extortion is up, carjacking is up, gang-related crimes using firearms are up, law-abiding firearms owners who subscribe to the strictest firearms regime in the world are not the problem. Guns smugglers, gang members, criminal organizations who import guns from the United States and other countries are the problem of gun crime in this country. And so what do we need to do? We need to ensure that our borders are not porous. We've talked about adding more CBSA agents. We've talked also about making sure that we're scanning shipping containers every time that they come into the country. That doesn't just help on gun smuggling. That also helps on vehicle thefts as well. One of the biggest challenges with the gun problem in this country is bail reform, Bill C-75. Criminals are not afraid anymore. And let me tell you a story, if I have time, about an OPP officer when Greg Prescala was killed. I took my staff to the bridge, and an OPP officer was there, and he said to me, "Can I talk to you after the procession goes by?" And I said, "Sure." He showed me a picture. In Aurelia, they had stopped the car. It was a 9mm Glock with an extended mag, a highly illegal firearm in this country that was dropped on the floorboard by this criminal as he escaped. They pursued him, restricted firearm. They pursued him, caught him. That afternoon, he was out on bail to threaten our communities again. So these are the things that we need to work on. We need to have bail reform. We have to stop attacking law-abiding firearms owner and go after the problem. Gangs, criminal gun smugglers, criminal organizations, they are the problem with the gun problem in this country right now, not law-abiding firearms owners.
Jono?
Yeah, thanks, John. Agree 100%. It's the criminals that are doing this. Guns are coming across. We're doing more and more to try and stop this. I agree 100%. We need to do some scanning of these vehicles. There's even people coming through on these trucks, let alone cocaine and so on coming from the United States. It's terrible. As far as the guns are concerned, me personally, I think a pistol is only meant for one thing, and that's to kill a human. Whereas hunting rifles and so on, I was a gun owner when I was 14, and I was a very good shot. I had two .22s and a .410. The only thing I ever killed, mind you, was a chipmunk, and it was by accident, honestly. I ended up having quite a funeral for that little fellow, but yeah, it was a good shot. But I didn't mean to kill him. But anyway, the long and short of that is, it's the control of the guns. There are law-abiding. One of my sons has guns, and he likes to go to a range and shoot guns. And he's law-abiding. He keeps his ammunition in one area locked up and his guns in another area. So even if somebody broke into his house, they couldn't, if they stole his gun or something, they'd have to.
Does he have a handgun?
He has a handgun, and it's he uses that for sport. But and I don't have a problem with people that are using it for sport. But there are certain guns that just should be restricted, and they should not come into this country. If you have one of these guns, I've never seen anybody go duck hunting, well, maybe people do, with an assault rifle. Like, why do you need to do that? Are you that bad of a shot? Like, really, come on, you have to shoot 30 rounds to try and get a duck.
They've been banned since 1974, John.
Yeah, so they shouldn't be, they should be banned.
A scary-looking firearm is not necessarily an assault rifle.
No,
right?
there's, even the term AR does not mean
assault rifles have been banned
Yeah.
since 1974, just so you
And
know.
why are they in our country? And why are people having them? That's the question.
They don't.
Darn, I wanted to say
They
more.
don't, that's the point.
Okay.
Well, but the next question is actually to you, Jono.
Okay.
So and again, for both candidates, but specifically this was addressed from the audience to Jono. Canada needs to diversify its markets to reduce reliance on the U.S. Mark Carney has said he will stick with B69, no new pipelines, etc. How do the Liberals propose to get materials to other markets other than the USA? So transport.
Transport,
Yeah.
okay. Are we talking about oil? Because we did build a pipeline.
I'll reread the question.
Okay.
I'll fill it in terms of some of the wording. Canada needs to diversify its markets to reduce reliance on the U.S.
Okay.
Mark Carney has said he will stick with B69, no new pipelines, etc. How do Liberals propose to get the, and I'm filling this in now, transport, to run materials to other markets other than the USA?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand the question, but all I know is that we're working very.
I think it's about diversification of our resources and then less dependence on the United States.
Okay,
I think that's
yeah,
the
our
question.
resource, we have more resources as far as electricity and for oil
so
and
maybe
gas.
I'll take the liberty of just making it a broad question and
Okay.
give you an opportunity to answer to both.
Okay.
And you can kind of pick pieces of it, and again, within the 2 minutes. So in terms of transporting materials to other places in the USA, and in terms of pipelines. And again, I'm kind of keeping it broad, but if
Okay.
you want to.
Yeah, the infrastructure is there. What's going to prevent it is the tariffs. And we have to deal with Donald Trump's tariffs, and we're working with that. And I think we need an economist who knows pretty much how to deal with it, or maybe teach Mr. Trump how economics works and what tariffs. basic economics 101, tariffs do not work, okay? It's just basic. He's taxing the American people billions of dollars. He's taxing them, and they have to learn that it's not the right thing for their country. Anyway, but as far as moving products, yeah, it's going to be difficult as long as there's tariffs, but we're looking at overseas. We're looking at Europe. We're looking at Asia even, moving products there. There's, if you look at China, I hate to say, but they're actually getting their beef from other areas other than the United States right now. And there's soybeans. That's good for us and other markets. So they're massive importers, so that's going to help us. So we have to move our goods overseas is what's going to have to happen. And the United States is going to need some product too, but if they're willing to pay their tariffs, then, so be it. It's not impacting us per se, other than our volume of product is going to be decreased because their demand for our product and anybody else in the world's product is going to be costing them more money.
Thank you, John. John B., so again, that broad topic area.
So, look, Trump's tariff threats, the Trump administration tariff threats have been a wake-up call to our country. And that call is that we cannot be timid anymore. We have to be bold, ambitious, and audacious in everything that we do. We have become too dependent. 75% of our trade goes north-south. We have to start thinking east-west, and that includes removing interprovincial trade barriers. Poilievre-led government within the first 30 days will sit down with the provincial premiers, and we will not leave that table until those interprovincial trade barriers are removed. Why is that important? Because it represents an increase of almost 8% of our GDP and unleashing almost $17 billion to our economy. So that's one thing. The other thing that I said earlier that becomes critical is in being bold, ambitious, and tenacious and audacious is to not ideologically attack our clean Canadian energy resource sector. We just can't keep doing that. And we have to remove Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines bill. We have to remove C-48, the anti-tanker ban. We have to create a national energy corridor. We agree on that, because if we can move products from west to east, we can move electricity from east to west. And if we are truly going to move towards cleaner energy, whether it's solar panels or other things, we're going to need that electrification. We're going to need it, and Quebec has a lot of it, and other eastern parts of the country has it as well. So we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to insulate ourselves from the tariff threats that President Trump has imposed. And it's a difficult situation. It changes every day. It's hard to manage. But the one thing that we can be sure of, if we make the decisions on our own to insulate us from Trump, to make sure that we are prepared and we are creating an economy that is working for us, then he can threaten us with anything. And I go back to that example I gave earlier of tens of billions of dollars that have been lost to our nation as a result of this anti-energy policy. Think of what we would do with that. And we have to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, John B.
Okay.
So the next two questions are for both candidates.
Okay.
Since the last question was to John O, I'm going to start with John B on this
Sure.
one. Medical assistance is dying.
Yeah.
Currently, advance requests are not allowed in Canada except in Quebec, even though the majority of Canadians support it. What is your position on advance request for MAID?
Yeah, so I initially supported, so the medical assistance in dying came back to Parliament after a Superior Court decision in Quebec that required legislation to be enacted within a certain timeline. And I supported initially the medical assistance in dying legislation. One of the things that is prevalent in our party is that any issues with respect to conscious issues, and I would classify that medical assistance in dying as one of them, is subject to a free vote. That vote for me became critical. My position has evolved on medical assistance in dying, that if the situation is irremediable, that there is family consent to the consent of the individual, I would actually support, because of my position evolving the way it has, I would support pre-informed and prior consent on medical assistance in dying. It's obviously it's a personal issue for individuals, but as a legislator, I see the need for it. But again, any decision that we make, legislation or otherwise, has to hold up to any specific court challenges that might happen. But as an MP, as a legislature, I would support the expansion of that, especially in cases, as I said earlier, where death is irremediable. I do have concerns about overly expanding it. In the cases of mental health, for example, there are issues where people can seek help for mental health. Sometimes, you know, what a person is going through maybe shouldn't result in death. Maybe it should result in additional therapy and making sure that that therapy is available for people. But it's a very sensitive topic, especially for families as well. So, thank you.
John B. John O., same question.
Yeah, it is a very sensitive issue. Again, it's, you know, me personally, you know, it's your body, you know, your choice type thing. You have to give people the options, but, you know, it is a family issue. I think it has to be discussed, and as John said, if it's absolutely the last choice, and if it helps the person, you do not want to watch your loved one suffer under any circumstances. If they're, you know, if they've asked for assistance, their life is, it's just gone terrible, and they're in pain, or they're just being sustained for, it's hard. It's hard, but it is one of these situations where I think it comes down to the family that has to make that decision. And if there's legalities as far as allowing it, that should be legislated, I think.
Thank you, John O. So the next question, as I mentioned, is to both candidates. Since I started with John B., I'm going to start with John O. this time. Workers' rights, and how would you implement protecting the backbone of our nation? Thank you.
Workers' rights. Workers have a lot of rights, like a refusal to work even. If you look at what the unions have done as far as giving workers a lot of power over the years, I support workers' rights completely. We come from a union environment. Used to be the #1 profession where people died on the job. It was a lineman. And we have so much in the way of safety now that it's marginal. Still happens, unfortunately. But there are situations where you know, safety is first in all these applications. I think as far as employees' rights are concerned, they have the right to a good job, a safe work environment, and you know, management should respond to that.
What about taking away the bargaining?
I was going to say, with all apologies, we have so many questions here, and we're really so. If we still might have a moment, if you want to write the question down, we'll add it. But just for a timeline, and possibly the candidates, if they're still here, they might be available after, depending on their schedule.
Do I still have time? I can say with bargaining, bargaining power, I think employees should have the right to negotiate with their employers. I think it's very important. And I was management, but there's a union, environment, and a very strong union. But, you know, workers' rights are important, and primarily for safety reasons. So.
Thank you, John. Same question, John.
Well, it shouldn't surprise anyone, as the former president of a firefighters union, that I support collective bargaining rights of labor unions. You know, look, one of the things that we need to do is to ensure that we're creating opportunities for workers in this country so that they can earn powerful paychecks, so that they can pay their mortgages, feed their families, provide a safe and secure environment for their children, and to provide education for them going forward. And so, supporting workers becomes a critical part of it. I'm very proud, actually, throughout this campaign to see the support that we're getting from trade unions right across the country because they want to build. They want an economy that's going to work for them. And so we've announced several programs that are going to help trade unions. And look, in life, in political parties, in everything, situations involved. And workers of this country are the backbone of this country, and they have continued to build. So we're going to boost funding for union training and an innovation program. We're going to pass tax fairness for traveling trades workers to fully deduct their taxes for travel, working with the provinces to harmonize health and safety rules, reinstating apprenticeship grants and streamlining EI for apprentices, creating a trades toolkit for high schools, requiring banks to recognize apprenticeship credentials for RESP eligibility. If we're going to be bold, if we're going to be ambitious and audacious, and we're going to build our nation, we're going to need workers to do that. And our plan is to support skilled trades, and this is why we're receiving so many labor endorsements right across the country, because they want their workers to benefit. The millionaires of the future will be those who are engaged in the skilled trades in this country. They will benefit as a result of a conservative government that's going to build our nation and grow.
Thank you, John B. So our next question from the audience is to the Conservatives, so John B. But again, we'll get both Johns to answer. Where are municipalities, and I'm just going to fill in some space here, where are the municipalities to get the dollars you needed for infrastructure to build all of the needed services, water, sewage, roads, schools, hospitals, etc.?
Well, as a former city councilor here in Barrie, I understand the relationship, and I see Claire's here and Amy's here as well. I see you. And I want to thank you for the work that you do. I know we're very fortunate here in the city of Barrie, as we are in the town of Innisfil, to have councils that work together to build better communities, and those partnerships are going to continue. In fact, I would suggest that they're going to grow under a conservative government. We all want the same thing. We want to make sure that we have communities that have affordable housing and that housing attainability is not out of the reach. So working together to address many of the issues that we talked about before, Claire, I see that you just walked in, but we talked about working on development charges, which, as you know, and building permit fees are a significant cost to the development community. In fact, we've seen a decline in building starts right across the province of Ontario. We want to make sure that we build, and we build proper housing as well, and that includes affordable housing, and incentivizing municipalities in relation to federal infrastructure dollars to do that. We've got to make sure the built forms are going to change. They are going to change. The days of single sprawling housing in suburban neighborhoods are going to change. The city has already enacted intensification programs within the city, and we see that sprouting up along intensification nodes and corridors where we've got 4, 5, 6-story buildings that are happening, but also transit corridors. Making sure that we're building in and around transit areas becomes critical, whether it's local transit, provincial, interprovincial transit, or making sure that we're building around the GO train. Those are the things that we need to work on. And so in partnership with cities and municipalities across this country, we can incentivize municipalities to do more. I know they want to do more, and we're going to be there to help them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, John B. Same question, Jono.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, with the federal government has been going directly to the municipalities to try and assist them. I think what's happened is it used to be more of a provincial issue. So what's happened now is the federal government has had to step in to go directly to municipalities to try and assist getting the money to where it needs to be. I'm not the type of politician that's going to knock any other politician. I don't do that. But there are levels of government we have to understand. There's the federal government, provincial government, and municipal government, as we all know. Municipal governments is where they're working to try and do infrastructure, setting things up. They have to look, and I know like our mayor, Alex Nuttall, I know him well, used to be my Ward 10. But
I thought you were going to say he used to be your student, but you weren't a teacher.
no, I'm not that old, John. Yeah, maybe you, but not me. But no, actually, I think he's younger, a little bit younger.
Yeah.
But I don't have gray hair. But anyway, no, I don't say anything bad about other people. That's my thing, is I don't like to do that. I might say some things in jest. But anyway, as far as this topic is concerned, the federal government has been helping. The Liberal government has been helping, trying to get the money, infrastructure money, down to the actual municipalities, and I think they're grateful for that. But hopefully we can get the province to also work together with the municipalities and develop the lands, and you know, hopefully that's going to come through.
I have black hair, by the way. I dye it Wisdom. It's a Clairol product. It's called
perfect.
Wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jono. The next question is specifically to Jono. Are the Liberals coming after the equity in my primary residence, either by equity tax or capital gains tax?
Okay, there's one of those things that John was talking about, misinformation. No, we're not going after your equity. They actually just reduced, as far as the capital gains. There was a situation where, you know, if you had some capital gains, there's at a certain point there would be an extra percentage that has now been removed. So it's 50%, you're paying 50% of your capital gain is at your marginal tax rate, whatever your tax rate is. So people particularly are...
Primary residence.
You're talking primary residence? There's no capital gains on your...
So we're asking.
You're going to have you're not going to have capital gains tax on your primary residence.
Yes, but are you coming after?
No. Where did you get that idea?
I just wanted a straight answer.
I know there's been some talk about that in that what John was referring to is that misinformation. So
You did try to raise the capital gains on secondary residences. You did try to do that.
when?
Now, people's cottages.
That's not a primary residence.
And sorry,
We gotta-
I
let's keep
appreciate, I
this
really
on track.
appreciate, John,
Let's keep
I
this
really
on track.
appreciate the comments.
It was
but just
raised.
because of our structure,
It's
to be
gone.
fair to both candidates, again, if you want to follow up on those questions, if they're available after, that would be great. And I'm very grateful for the passion and the questions, but I'm just going to really enforce sticking to here, just to give that opportunity to answer the question as best they can based on the card. So much appreciation, but again, I'm just going to step in for that. John, you still have about a minute to answer.
Yeah, again, with
In a broad way.
the information, like to that gentleman's point, yeah, the capital gains was raised on secondary residences and other investments, but that is gone. But as far as your primary residence, I hope darn nobody comes up with that idea, especially, you know, somebody else, because we're not going to do it, just so you understand.
Thank you, Jono. So again, same question, but the way,
Sure.
so we're discussing primary residence, equity tax, capital gains tax as a topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always been speculation when you have a debt and deficit situation like we're facing in this country, that a government will try anything they can, especially if they're not necessarily looking at increasing revenues, will try everything they can in order to extract as much as they can from taxpayers. We've seen, you know, like I wouldn't classify this as disinformation or misinformation or lying. We've seen documents that have been produced within the Liberal caucus where they have discussed the price of a home equity tax and the impact that that would have in terms of creating revenues for the government. Just recently, as much as 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know for sure, on your tax form, you're now required to indicate the address of your principal occupancy. Why? Why? Nobody's explained. Nobody's been able to explain why they've asked for that. Now, I'm not going to speculate whether, in fact, they are going to come after the home equity, but there's been enough documented evidence, not misinformation or disinformation, where they have, shall we say, mused about the idea of a home equity tax. So, that remains to be seen. I don't want to see it, and I certainly hope that, and John has said he doesn't want to see it, and I hope if a Liberal government will never have an opportunity, quite frankly, to implement any further tax increases on this country that we can least afford.
Thank you, John B.
Thanks.
So the next question is to the Conservative candidate.
What time is it?
To you, John B.
Okay.
Why are you stopping funding to CBC Television and Radio Canada, which will destroy our best source of information and news?
Well, we're certainly not going to stop funding for Radio Canada. The Francophone language in this country is important, and it's important in certain regions. But we believe that it's time, I believe that it's time that CBC becomes almost like national public broadcasting in the United States, where it's subscriber-based. You can disagree with me, that's fine. We can have a healthy debate. We can have a healthy debate. But there are ways for the CBC to be funded, and that's through private sponsorship, through advertising. They can compete with other markets as well, and so there are ways to do that. So, but Radio Canada, we are not going to touch Radio Canada at all because of the importance of Francophone language rights in this country and the need for Francophones to have a voice heard as well. So, there you go.
Thank you, John B. So, John O., the general question of funding Radio Canada, CBC.
I think you know where I stand on that. I'm a subscriber. And even on the computer, you can get on CBC. It's fantastic. And listening to the news. You can listen to the news all day long on CBC, especially during this election. But interesting stuff. But I know I hear where John's coming from, and there's pretty much every media in Canada gets some funding from the federal government right now. It's not just CBC. So if you're suggesting no funding to media, then
no, we're actually,
that's fine.
Part of our platform released today was to actually increase the funding for local journalism funds by $25 million to give access to local journalism in communities like ours in Barrie and in Innisfil.
It'd be nice to get,
I
don't think we're going to paperback anymore, but we do have some local journalists right now, Barrie 360 and some of the others. They're doing a good job. Barrie Today.
Agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So thank you, Jono. So the next question is, so again, without any filter, I'm reading from the audience. We're actually back to the CBC question because it's going to be similar.
Okay.
Again, just from me reading it, if you want to say that you already finished answering the question, we're fine with that.
Yep.
But I'm going to read it, and it's to address to John O this time. So then again, just let me know. The question, again, unfiltered, if CBC programming is as good as you state, why can't this survive an advertising revenue without taxpayer funding?
Why can't it survive? It's not just the local program. These television shows are getting some great commercials. Like if you look at the CBC, the amount of advertising revenue that's coming in is increasing because there's money going in developing these programs. I don't know how many of you see, like also the federal government has also encourages development of television shows, movies, other things. Not just in Canada. There's actually revenue. The government makes money off some of these movies if they get overseas and so on. And we're actually promoting, even in Toronto, like we're Hollywood North, especially with the way things are going. With the Canadian dollar, unfortunately, being low, it makes filming up here in Canada a lot more. I don't know if you've ever watched the show Suits. Has anybody watched that series, Suits? That was filmed in Canada, in Toronto. And my wife would always point out, oh, there's TTC going by. So there's a real market for Canadian content. And sometimes, I think with the CBC, we're broadcasting to tiny little villages and so on across the country. So it costs money to put up a transmitter and broadcast that. So some of that money that's going into the CBC is using to fund that communication. So in Radio Canada. is very important for the French language communication, and which we respect. So I think, yeah, I guess the situation is go CBC.
So at the heart of this is obviously ensuring that, you know, we're obviously proud of our shared Canadian identity. That's one thing that should never be in question, but we're also talking about supporting media in other forms. I mentioned earlier, John, about the $25 million for the local journalism initiative to boost local journalism. One of the things that we're going to focus on, and again, you know, we want to be in government, not to run your lives, but to be in government and to make decisions that are going to benefit people. Freedom of Speech Act, and we're going to repeal the internet censorship laws and restore news on Meta and other platforms that have been lost as a result of Bill C-18. We're going to ensure that all domestic government advertising dollars are spent on Canadian platforms only. That'll help boost local journalism initiatives, and some of that money will be spent on the CBC. Providing $25 million in addition to support for Indigenous language media, supporting remote area internet connectivity so that every Canadian has reliable access to news. And, you know, again, through listeners, through subscribers, through donations, through sponsorships, through ad revenue and licensing revenue, the CBC can be a viable option in this country going forward. We have to make sure that we protect free speech and every ounce of freedom that we have in this country, because it was Wilfrid Laurier that once said, "Canada is free and freedom is its nationality."
Thank you to both Jano and John B. So we're ending our time here. We still had a few more questions, but we're going to end it here with the closing statements.
Game 7.
Thank you again. I really appreciate the questions from the audience, that you took the time to ask them, and the passion of it shows as well. So we're going to have the closing statements. We're going to go in the reverse order that we start introductions with. So John Brassard, the closing statement.
Okay, thank you. And I do appreciate participation tonight. Again, John, thanks for being here, and to Rogers TV, and to all of you who stayed for this and came for this second hour. We're truly at a fork in the road in this country. You know, I was door knocking the other day, and somebody said to me, it wasn't me saying it to them, that the last 10 years are like having a car that's 10 years old. And like all 10-year-old cars, things start breaking down, the engine light starts coming on, the brakes start fading, the car just keeps breaking down. And just because you put a new coat of wax on that car doesn't mean it's a new car. Many of the problems, or a carney, many of the problems that we've been facing in this country came long before Donald Trump's tariff threats, the crime, the economic malaise, young people losing hope, and just, I mean, the immigration challenges that we're facing right now that have put pressure on our healthcare and our education and housing affordability. All of those things were happening long before Donald Trump. So we really are truly at a fork in the road right now. And I'll leave you with this. Canada's Conservatives want to be in government to do two things. Number one, to be in government, not to run your lives. We've seen enough massive government intervention in our lives over the last 10 years. And the second thing that we want is to make sure we do a few things right, not everything wrong. And if that's the measure by which we're gauged in terms of success of a government, I'll take that any day. And you know when government is doing a good job? When you don't hear about them. When you don't hear about the scandals and the corruption and the cronyism and all of the things that have gone on. I've had a front row seat to all of this stuff on the Ethics Committee. And just because you wax the car, the parts are still part of this car. Nothing has changed. And so we need to think clearly, and we need to think decisively, and we need to make the right choice. We need to put Canada first for a change. That's what this election is about. Thank you.
Thank
No,
you, John Broussard and John Althius for the closing
Okay,
statement.
thank you. No, I agree with John. We need change. I know John's been in since the same time. I think he went in the same time as Mr. Trudeau went in. So it's time for a change. It's time to have a government, an MP that actually represents the government in our region. It must have been tough for John to be, the opposition in this area. I can feel for you. Like, hopefully that when we have a change here in the region and it turns liberal again, it'd be nice change that we'd be dealing with Mr. Carney. And Mr. Carney is an economist. I think he's going to be the best person to go up against Trump and his issues. So, we're driving that home. That we're hearing that same message as we're door knocking. And I'll be honest, because this area has been so strongly conservative, for us to go door knocking, we were a little bit nervous, but things are coming forward, and it's incredible the response we're getting from people with our 250 signs. That's it. That's all we got, 250 signs. So we're making great headway, and I'm really pleased with the team. I came in, as John mentioned, at kind of the last minute I stepped in, but we needed somebody to go against John because he is a affordable person. He's got a good history. He's a good man.
Worked hard.
Worked hard. He got where he is, and city council and so on. And I'm speaking his praises because I'd like to see him retire. No.
I'm not ready to retire. I am not ready to retire. We got a lot of things to
I
fix
could be
in
there
this
at your
country.
retirement party, though, okay?
Well,
No.
or I'll be there at your election party, election night defeat party, just to
No.
congratulate you on a great run. So,
No, it's good. And as I said, I don't like dirty politics. I just, I respect the man, and we're trying to put forth a good fight, and we're hoping that all our efforts are going to pay off. And we get Mark Carney at the door there and straighten Mr. Trump out.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John Althius.
Thank you.
I'm just going to be very brief. We do want to thank, very special thanks from CARP and the co-hosts. We really want to express, and everyone wants to express their many thanks to Grace United Church and Reverend Susan Engel for hosting our event and providing the space for us. I again want to thank the candidates for their time. So many questions. I appreciate your questions. Thank you, John Broussard. Thank you, John Althius. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Sampson, and I'm the People's Party of Canada candidate for Barrie South Innisfil. I've been a financial advisor for 25 years, I've been married for 25 years, and I have two twins at the University of Ottawa about to embark on their careers. And I'm concerned, I'm gravely concerned. Like most Canadians, housing, employment, cost of living are top on my agendas. As a financial professional, I subscribe to the principle that temporary debt utilized to grow a business or an economy is good debt. However, every family, farmer, and small business owner knows that you can't spend more than you take in, because that will eventually lead to bankruptcy. The same principles should apply to governments, which should not be allowed to accumulate debt and burden future generations. And we're getting to that point of no return. Let me put this in perspective for you. Here's a little analogy. Did you know 1 million seconds equals 11.5 days? Did you know 1 billion seconds equals 31 years and 8 months? and 1 trillion seconds is 31,709 years. Because most of us no longer carry or use physical cash, we no longer appreciate the ramifications of spending millions, billions, and trillions of dollars, money we do not have, are to our future generations. This must stop. Jim Rohn, one of our preeminent thought leaders of our time, communicated, "I'll take care of me for you, if you take care of you for me." What if as a country we became 10 times stronger, 10 times better, 10 times more unique? Think of how much better we could affect peace and prosperity on the world stage. Sadly, we are currently not in a position to do so. So the People's Party of Canada will accomplish this by stopping mass immigration and protecting jobs, downsizing government and freeing our economy, staying out of foreign conflicts, withdrawing from the World Economic Forum and the Paris Accords. Essentially, we will bring our resources home, fix our country, and then be more effective on the world stage. 10 times more effective. These are only a few of the ideas that I can share with you in my limited time today, but I'm happy to share more. You can contact me at mark.sampson@teamppc.ca and check out our platform at peoplespartyofcanada.ca. On April 28th, I'm asking you to vote Mark Sampson, People's Party of Canada. Thank you.